For the public, my name is Mikael Ali. I'm the coordinator for the Department's Crisis Intervention Team effort. I've been the coordinator since September of 2011. Since that time, we have trained some 74 officers in our department who are members of the Crisis Intervention Team. And additionally, we have trained 8 members of other agencies. We have also trained members of our Department of Emergency Management. We have progressed with the program to such an extent that we are now engaged in conversations with the University of San Francisco relative to getting their involvement in our effort on par with that which took place or has taken place in Memphis, Tennessee, with the Universities of Memphis and the University of Tennessee being an integral part of the Memphis Police Department's effort to make their crisis intervention team more robust. But as I stand before you today, this is not an issue in and of itself of mental illness. This is an issue of the department having options available to our officers to mitigate the need for lethal force. As I had discussions, I thought it would be most appropriate to have a pilot program whereby the members of the crisis intervention team were the first persons or members of our organization to potentially receive electronic control devices. The reason and the rationale behind that is simple. We have invested a significant amount of training into our department in terms of our members of particular patrol. Prior to the training of the crisis intervention, there was a mental health awareness training that some 900 members of our department received relative to identifying and being aware of issues surrounding individuals in crisis and mental health. The purpose of the crisis intervention team training took on a little different dynamic in terms of its curriculum, its approach. And that dynamic was a greater emphasis on de-escalation skills, a greater emphasis on the didactics of mental illness, and an appreciation of the challenges in mitigating some of those issues. But as we move forward, the idea, thinking on it again, is that these officers will be best positioned to not only, one, come upon instances where individuals are in crisis, whether they're momentary crisis, where there is an issue of a history of mental illness, but these officers, by virtue of their training, would be most apt in dealing with those circumstances, attempting to de-escalate them as best they can, and when there is no other option, using a less lethal option. A less lethal option, we have a couple of them currently. I'm prepared to show the commission what we have, but those in terms of their size and availability are not the most appropriate in terms of being readily available for these crisis events. So looking upon having a device that is immediately available on the person of an officer, the electronic control devices would be more appropriate. Taser International is one company actually that has pretty much cornered the market and has devices that are in place in some 10,000+ agencies across the country. Of the top 20 law enforcement agencies in the country, we are the only one that does not have the device deployed. As the chief pointed out, even the Memphis Police Department, which is the bedrock of crisis intervention team training, decided in December of 2011 that it needed to add electronic control devices to its continual force options for their officers. Even prior to that, those officers who were trained in crisis intervention were provided with the 40 millimeter impact weapon. Perhaps this would be a good time to show you exactly what I'm talking about. This is the weapon system that is deployed in Memphis with the crisis intervention team. Every one of their officers is trained with this weapon system. It is used with the concept of contact and cover. That concept being basically that you have the initial officer who does what they can to try to de-escalate. based upon their experience and skills that they've developed through the training, whereas the secondary officer has this weapon system. And in some instances, it's not right there with them all the time, but this system is available to them in the event that force needs to be used in order to deal with a set of circumstances that go beyond the individual being a threat to themselves, but a threat to the public. As the chief pointed out, and since we've had this training and this new approach in our city, we have not had an incident of lethal force used against an individual in the state of mental crisis who only posed a threat to themselves. The certain set of circumstances.
That's false.
Sir, please hold it down. Let the commander speak.
He's lying.
If you continue to submit that, we're going to have to ask you to leave the room.
As the most recent event took place, as tragic as it was, we did realize very clearly that we did not necessarily have the less lethal option that was readily available and that would be appropriate in this set of circumstances. We leaves our officers with one option, and that is the use of lethal force. The hope is that this commission will allow for the department to embark upon a pilot program whereby only the officers who have been trained in crisis intervention and those who will be future trained. We do have, in fact, have a class scheduled for October 22nd that we hope to be a little larger in terms of the size. We generally have classes of about 30 officers. We're hoping in our partnership with the University of San Francisco that perhaps the availability of space and additional teaching resources will allow for a larger group to be trained. But with that said, this group of officers that we currently have that represent every working shift and are at every district station would be the ones that we go through the training and have these systems deployed. We do, unfortunately, I did not receive any reaching out from any other organization other than Taser International. They actually reached out to us and offered their services in terms of coming before this commission and explaining the science and the equipment itself and the improvements that have been made.